The ordinary meeting of council this morning. Apologies, we have apologies from Lloyd McCallum and Alan Beard, who are actually hearing submissions on the transport plan. Somebody like to move there? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Lyndall. All in favour will say aye. 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 Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest this morning? Are you aware of any? Item 4, which is public forums, petitions and deputations. And we have a deputation this morning, so welcome those who are going to speak to perhaps come forward and you can address the meeting.
So to start.
The floor is yours. Yes.
Good morning, my name is Katie Allen. I'm here today with some of your neighbours to speak on behalf of all Southlanders. So now you will have all heard about the application EB Lime lodged with Environment Southland last June. They applied originally for 35-year consent and unlimited waste intake. EB Lime stated their goal is to become the sole landfill for the whole Lower South Island. Only 19 neighbours within 2 kilometres of the landfill's working phase were notified by a posted letter in January, the middle of the summer holiday, and apparently with EB Lime's agreement. These few neighbours were given just 4 weeks to write a submission and were only provided with 3 links to a 1,400-page application full of legal jargon and scientific references. As a result of this, only 5 submissions were lodged from the neighbouring properties. We are very disappointed an application of this magnitude has resulted in such flawed process. The adverse impact a successful application would have on the whole of Southland's environment and its population was simply ignored. The decision of this application will have an impact not only on us, but also on future generations. It is one thing to have a 35-year consent at 100,000 tonne a year compared to 25-year consent unlimited tonnage, which will drastically reduce the lifetime of the landfill. How could the application possibly be considered without making the general public aware and without enabling full public scrutiny? How can the people of Southland be so disregarded on such an important issue? We have 2,500 people living in Winton, only 4 kilometers away, being completely left in the dark. We are looking forward to the input from all 3 independent experts contracted to assess this very complex application. Surely, more than one commissioner would be more appropriate for such a task. Please reconsider to ensure good decision-making and to uphold our democratic values. Many new environmental technologies and information will be available within 35 years. Therefore, we must continually strive to improve our landfill practices within such a long period. A much shorter duration of consent and also a continued cap on the tonnage per year would surely be much more appropriate. It is quite unsettling that a landfill of this class and size could be centralized near Winton and serves an area of 80,000 square kilometers with over 500,000 people, plus potentially millions of tourists. Putting such a crucial infrastructure in the hands of one private company runs the risk of price monopoly. EB Lime stated they want to future-proof the operation by formalizing the ability to take in emergency waste. History says they have already taken in that kind of waste. We cannot ignore the potential for corporate greed behind this application. At 100,000 tonne a year, EB Lime admitted they are not always complying with the terms and conditions laid down in their current consent. Therefore, it begs the question, how are they going to cope with unlimited waste per year? 5 years seems a very long time to adhere to terms and conditions of the new consent when it involves such sensitive issues like public health and our environment. This is an active site of large-scale lime extraction, resulting in alterations to the surrounding land structure year on year. The Southland District Council reported a decline in waste volume created by Southlanders in recent years. Southlanders don't see much of a reward for their efforts with such a proposal looming. This will have a negative impact on our roads due to the increase in trucks coming and going. On one hand, we have a Prime Minister declaring a climate change emergency, and down here, all sorts of waste is being trucked for thousands of kilometers day after day. The carbon footprint will increase dramatically. And where is our council standing on this? Recently, David Parker announced there is no law in New Zealand that makes Rio Tinto liable to clean up their toxic waste that has been stockpiled to an estimated 500,000 tonnes in 50 years. It begs the question, where is all the toxic waste going to end up? There's so much to take into consideration regarding public health and the impact on our environment and infrastructure on such a long-term project of this magnitude. The list of questions and concerns we have is very long, and the people of Southland deserve transparency and honest answers. Environment Southland councillors are elected by us. Environment Southland's mission says working with our community to improve Southland's environment. Since launching a petition around a month ago, without much promoting, we have already received around 1,000 signatures from people opposing this application. It will be too late to act when our towns and rivers are polluted and our health is affected. Thank you for your time.
I'd just like to add a couple of comments. My name's David Rose, and I guess firstly, it was great seeing the staff report yesterday that came out with a number of questions, but it's only a recommendation for the Commissioner. So I've just got a couple more comments to make. Winton is known for free parking. We don't want it to be known for a very toxic dump. The dump in Winton is relying on the liner to stop toxic waste getting into the groundwater, the surface water, and indeed Invercargill's drinking water. The leachate that goes from that site goes into the Invercargill wastewater. We've got no idea from what we see in the submissions about what it contains, what it could contain. Michael Durant said yesterday that there's no breakdown of what aluminium dross going in there would do and what that would do for the environment. And indeed, is Invercargill wastewater system up to the task of dealing with a large amount of this leachate coming in? We don't know. Their consent is due to come up in only a few years, and is their system strong enough to deal with this sort of waste? These are questions that we should have had proper scrutiny through a very good public submission process, and cannot understand why it wasn't notified and proper public scrutiny was done. The odour issue with Winton, absolutely, it's just on the outskirts of Winton. But the consent doesn't expire until 2038. So why is this happening now? There's no rush to put new consents in place. So with that, I have a graph from the reports that have been done by AB Lime, and it tells you, or shows you, I just want to pass some copies around. Yeah, perhaps one between 2 o'clock and 10. Here we go. Maybe. Good. So we're talking about the top graph, And it's very clear to see when you look at the top graph that the bottom line, or the red dotted line on the graph, is the limit currently at 100,000 tonnes. So is there any change? This is scenario 2. This is taking on board all of the South Island waste. At the moment, it's been around 60,000 tonnes. The red line's 100. If it goes to the Lower South Island landfill this year, it will go past 100,000 tonnes and gets to 320,000 tonnes. That's their own data. And increasing to 670,000 by 2050 and likely filled by 2061. It doesn't breach the 100,000 limit under current guidelines until 2065, but it's full under the Lower South Island landfill by 2061. Is this a change to what they're doing? I think the graph tells it all. So, to restore faith in democracy, we'd ideally like you to open up submissions again, but legal advice we've had tells that you'd need a judicial review to do that. But if you can find a way of doing it, we'd love it, because there's a whole lot of people would love to be able to put in submissions. 7 submissions to something like this is just not good enough. Then you've got one commissioner. This is a big issue. So it's very unusual. I was involved with the stormwater consent for ICC. 3 commissioners. Is this not a big issue? Look at the graph. Is it changing? Is it a change from what's currently happening? Massive. So that's something you could do. And lastly, maybe even the staff report. It brings up a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of questions that haven't been answered, the information, the way that they're trying to hide under the current consent on some things and then wanting the new consent for others. And indeed downplayed the volume that was happening here until you sift through the documents. I think it's document number 2, page 346, you'll find the graph. But anyway, thank you for your time. Restore faith in democracy. Love you councillors to step up and do something to do that, because it's been a shambles. And I'm quite embarrassed, actually. I've had a lot to do with this council. I'm quite embarrassed about this process.
Any questions, Eric?
Yeah, just a bit of clarification. So I think in your statement that you made that residents within 2 kilometres were invited to submit, and just wanting to be clear, so there was no public advertising for submissions. That was as far as the invitation to submit went. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it was by letter over the holiday period, when people are away on holiday, Eric. So, you know, the mail gets it. The mail system's not great anyway, but over the holiday time, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, David, you mentioned odour issues or potential odour issues. I don't live in Winton, so I'm not sure. Is there ever odour detected by people living in Winton from the present site under discussion? Do we ever smell?
Yeah, I spoke to people, they confirmed that they can smell it even in the Winton Township. Not every day, certain wind directions, it is reported to me, yes.
So there are reports.
But I don't know if they are official reports that been lodged here by myself.
Anecdotal.
Pardon?
Anecdotal. Thank you.
It has been confirmed, Robert, there's 4,200 tonnes of sludge coming from Queenstown, Alexandra and Wanaka to that landfill site every year. It was the article in the Otago Daily confirmed that, and it was a spokesman from Queenstown mentioned 4,000. So there's a lot of stuff that perhaps should be dealt with in a better way, instead of NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Thank you, David.
No further questions? Look, I'd just like to thank you. I'll take one. You've got a couple. Okay, I'll take a couple more, then I'll have to close it off.
Now, the sludge that's going in, a lot of that will be water and it'll be just coming out of the bottom. It's a bit worrying. is that sewage waste or is it?
Yes, it is.
From Queenstown?
From Queenstown. Yeah. I believe they shut their own landfill to it and they truck it daily actually, so it's a big issue. Mind you, it's a big earner for the landfill.
Peter?
Yeah, just like to say thanks very much, Katie and David, for bringing this to our attention. I guess one of the word is unlimited, which, you know, we're constrained now with a lot of stuff in our community around limits, so that's highly unusual. And you made that very clear on that. The other thing is that you think people are aware of the recent report that's just come out. You talked about the staff report. And at the bottom, to me, it was very clear that we've taken a position on opposing this application and not only used the word decline, which is normally used, was highlighted and reviewed.
Any questions of clarification, Peter? I think we're starting to get into.
Okay, so just a comment on that. If you could,
No,
please.
people are not aware of this report, just the submitters and our small group, of course.
It's a great thing, but I guess Invercargill Stormwater, it was to decline and it actually went through. And, you know, the reason Environment Southland at the time was asking it to be declined is because of the E. coli that was getting into the streams. So again, it puts doubt over how good the leachate going into the wastewater system's being dealt with, because sometimes consents aren't as good as they seem. That particular one's always been a bugbear of mine, how it got through, but you wanted it declined at the time, so.
Look, thanks for coming in and exercising your democratic right this morning. We'll watch how this process goes, but as you're probably aware, councillors are not allowed to interfere with consents or compliance. But I've got quite a bit of faith in the system. Let's see how this thing pans out. But thank you for your contribution this morning, and it will be a public meeting, and I'm sure that public scrutiny will be, people will be there to listen to see how this thing pans out. So thanks very much. Right, we'll move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting of council of the 10th of March.
I'm happy to move that,
Eric, seconded by Jeremy. No alterations. If not, I will put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to item 6, which is the adoption of committee resolutions. The first up is the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting on the 31st of March. Eric, would you like to comment on the meeting?
well, not a lot to comment. I think it was quite a short meeting, but we spent some time looking at the review process of the changes to delegations of the water and land plan, and they're pretty accurately recorded as to where we got to there, so I'm happy to move the minutes.
Moved by Eric, seconded by David. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to the Regulatory Committee meeting of the 31st of March. Neville, would you like to comment on the meeting?
No comment, Chair, just I'll take it as read and so it's a correct record of that meeting, but I've here to answer any questions.
Doesn't appear to be any questions. You'll move the
I move. Yes.
second for that recommendation. Bonnie, all in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to the Organisational Performance and Audit Committee meeting of the 1st of April. Lyndall, would you like to comment on your meeting?
Only briefly to say that that was a meeting focused on risk elements of the business, and interestingly that covers everything from health and wellbeing to data management to the economic recovery projects. So the risks across the organisation are many and varied. And with that, I will move the adoption. Thank you.
Moved by Lyndall, seconded for that. Seconded by Bonnie. No questions. I will put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to the Regional Services Committee meeting of the 1st of April. Jeremy, would you like to comment on your meeting?
Just pretty straightforward, so
Moved by Jeremy. Second by Lyndall. Any questions? No questions, I'll put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to the Southport Subcommittee meeting of the 1st of April. David, would you like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, most of it took place, most of the business took place under public exclusion, so we'll cover that later. I'd like to move.
Seconded.
Moved by David, seconded by Eric. All in favour will say aye. Right, we'll move to item 7, application of extraordinary or urgent business, supplementary reports or other. I'm not aware of any this morning. Move to item 8, questions. Nobody's made me aware of any this morning. We'll move to item 9, which is,
Sorry, Karen.
which is Chairman and Councillors' reports. The list of the activities I've undertaken as Chair are listed. Happy to answer any questions on any of those meetings. If not, we'll move to Councillors' reports. We have a report tabled by Neville on the Zone 5 and 6 meeting in Wanaka. Would you like to comment on that at all?
No, I just say, Chairman, I think that's well worthwhile that Environment Southland had a presence here. We did have some input as Chief Executive of Property Print. With some issues coming up, particularly over the three waters, where we need to be kept aware, even though we're not as directly affected as many of the other councils. But there's also plans about the structure of governance, which will occur across New Zealand when that happens. I think we need to keep our heads up about it.
No, thank you for that and for attending, Neville. There's a meeting in Christchurch on the Friday week that I think Rob and I will attend. Floyd.
Yeah, thank you. I attended the community board meeting on Monday evening. I'm a former member of that and like to keep in touch with what's happening there. The relevant there was a report on the Channel Deep thing, which is about to happen, the wharf repairs and the possible temporary disruption to traffic and things through there. And there's a request to seal the Maui Road, which is a council issue, but it relates indirectly to it because of the sand build-up at Maui. It's attracting a lot of people out there who like to visit the beach and plus the Maui track. So there's a major issue with the road there. So they were the points from that. Thank you.
Thank you. But Lyndall and Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was fortunate enough to have time to go to the Enviro Schools Hui at Maui on Friday. And it was a fantastic day. It was really well organised. The vast array of students were really, really well engaged in a variety of things from flax weaving to the aquavan from Otago University to activities about matariki and plant identification and historical use of those plants. The groups were really well led by a range of individuals, and I think the thing that made my heart glow the biggest was that there was a mentorship program within some of the older kids from Aparima and Aurora, I think, and they were there the day before. They stayed the night, they learnt some things, and then they were able to impart their knowledge and help as the experts within the groups with the younger students. And it was really a really very cool range of activities and a really cool thing to be upskilling some young people. So it was a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Lyndall. Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Last week I attended a Thriving Southland Communications workshop in Winton and very impressed actually with Thriving Southland, and they just really seem to be leaning forward into the changes that are coming. So very worthwhile evening. And then yesterday myself and Jeremy attended Dairy NZ Day talking about nutrient reductions, and that was Jeremy might want to comment too, but good to see that discussion being opened up again around the province, around how our future's going to unfold. So, anything to add on that, Jeremy?
No, it's good to see, and it's good to see all the industry good groups, including people now scheduling meetings to support their membership and getting their farm plans up and running, intensive winter grazing modules that we're going to require, so that it's good to see that happening. Any further reports this morning? Appear to be. We'll move to item 10, and the first item 1 is the Chief Executive's report. Rob, would you like to speak to your report?
Well, thank you, Chair. I'll just touch on a couple of things and then take some questions. But in the national space, the water reforms continue at pace. As you know, the ministers decided to defer the intensive winter grazing regs until for a year's time. They've also clearly set out their expectations that there will be some improvements this winter. We've got some reporting requirements, so we're working at the moment around what that looks like. We're also working with Otago Regional Council in Canterbury around what work needs to be done now to progress the intensive winter grazing modules and the other work required. Touch on the Three Waters reform. Councillor Cook and Chair. So that's continuing at pace, and it'll have some big implications, and we'll be seeing more of that in the next couple of months as we've said. There's a session in Christchurch coming up, and there's also some national conversations going on. So internally the team have got completing their work programs, sort of getting into the last quarter of the year. And significant bit of amount of work going on around mediation for the proposed water land plan, and also around the regional forum and the People Water Land program. And also, of course, we're significant amount of work around the long-term plan, shaping that work up as it comes to fruition. So happy to take any other questions.
Neville.
Just note under consent, Chairman, the Alliance Group hearing has been closed and the decision is due by the 5th of May.
Lyndall.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Rod, just wondering if there's any indication with regard to the RMA reforms, with how that's going to change the way councillors can be commissioners and the training, etc. Is that going to impact on how the hearings are conducted?
That level of detail hasn't been got to yet, but I'd imagine it would reinforce the need for that training going forward. So, yeah, but that level of detail hasn't been got to.
Jeremy, then Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just there's a wee phrase in there involved around the DIA workshops. Water reforms. I think there's lack of genuine iwi. I'm just wondering, trying to work out what is genuine iwi. Page 46, and specifically for South Island Ngāi Tahu involvement in the process. It's about the processes. And I just wonder what genuine iwi. That's come out of the workshops.
So this is one of the outcomes of the workshop that was touched on. Just around the need to engage early. So I guess is the key thing that's been highlighted there.
Yeah, it's just the term of genuine iwi. I don't know, are there iwi that aren't genuine or?
Involvement is attached to iwi.
Iwi, okay. I might just read the whole sentence wrong. Genuine iwi. Genuine iwi that are involved in that. Okay.
Certainly Ngāi Tahu are very interested in being involved.
My English wasn't that good. My apologies.
Thank you.
Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question under the consents for the Sulan, I think that's how you spell it, Sulan Properties Oyster consent or for a marine farm. And so it's a question on page 54, it's a question of demarcation. Given those issues around biosecurity and bonamia on the previous Big Glory ones, does biosecurity fit in that consent? Is there, if not, who's actually responsible for elements around biosecurity with the consent? I mean, I probably should know the answer, but I just don't want to see a hole occur where we put a bigger industry at risk.
Yes, the marine biosecurity sits with, mainly with EPI. As a national agency, we've got some responsibilities around our pathway plan, and so we'll be implementing the pathway plan around ensuring that the vessels travelling between areas need to be clean hulled. I'm not sure the detail around what's in the individual consent. We can have a look at that and get back to you, Councillor.
Well, yeah, I just would like to think that any MPI biosecurity issues are somehow embraced into the process, and I'm not sure what the route is for that to happen.
Can we come back to you on that?
Thank you.
Certainly that initial meeting, it was good to see that NPI were here within 24 hours. They had all the fishermen, iwi, all the right people in the room, and very much a joined up program going forward. And touch wood, so far the additional testing hasn't shown up any further infection. But full marks, often in the past we've seen that agencies being slow to act, but in this case I thought they were very quick off the mark. Any further, Peter?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just regarding intensive winter grazing, we had a bit of discussion earlier on about it. But the question to you, Rob, is have we got the resources to effectively monitor the situation as it unfolds in the deepest, darkest days of the winter around compliance and to actually respond to inquiries? Because we understand the scrutiny that's going to be on us and on Southland farmers.
Yeah, our team are developing, what does that work program look like? We are looking at, and I guess noting in the past we've done a lot more monitoring than other councils in this space. So I'm pretty comfortable with our monitoring. We'll be doing a wee bit more like this flight I talked about before, doing another flight. I guess it's going to be, increased reporting is going to be a key for us. I'm comfortable with, and we're also involving MPI and others in this monitoring as well. So, I'm seeing us harnessing, a bigger sort of raft of agencies to do this this monitoring, if you like, and some of it will be statutory, if you like, regulatory, but it's going to be focused on that behaviour change. So I've got a level of comfort.
And just adding that, I think with the multi-agency approach to this, the ownership is going back to where it should be with the industries rather than just the council as a regulator, and obviously we've got that role to play, but much more effective when you've got that wide range of eyes that are looking at it and putting the ownership where it needs to be, whether it's animal welfare or and doing the right thing. And so I'm reasonably encouraged as to how we'll go this winter. Robert.
Thank you. No, those are interesting comments, and with regard our capacity for monitoring problems that occur during the winter, do you think there's a place for a kind of a citizen science contribution there too? Because these issues affect all Southlanders. Is there an opportunity for people who are out and about to and see where something's gone wrong to get in touch with us and let us know what they see? And is that something we can cope with?
Yeah, so we've already got that system in place, so people can phone us if they see an issue. So that's already there. We'll be talking about that as part of our comms going forward. And look, industry and farm organisations have a similar approach. So they have numbers to call if someone sees something and feels as though they can't deal with it themselves, they can contact. There'll be phone numbers to call. So I think we're covering it. both with our own number, but also industry will have their numbers as well. Industry also encouraging their members to also, knock on doors and say, hey, actually, this needs to be thought about, done differently. So, I'm seeing a bit of a coalition of interested parties that are committed to improving practice. Not just ES, we've got the regulatory backstop, but actually others are also very much aware of the need for change.
I've got Neville, then David.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just under emergency management, I just ask you to note that the Alpine Fault 8 roadshow program is going to come down here on the 24th of May, and it's well worth attending. I hope you will have noticed that yesterday the latest information was released about the Alpine Fault, where it used to be considered there was a 29% chance of something happening within the next 30 years. It's now up to 70-something% with review of the studies and further information which is coming in. So we don't say it's an absolute immediate threat, but it's certainly something that we should be prepared for. Go to the roadshow. I have seen it and it's well worthwhile.
David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really a comment to Rob, just under the nutrient loading reduction modelling. I was just interested, and it'd be interesting just to get a bit more wrapped around it. Noted in the early findings that the contamination reductions were required in water bodies as opposed to reductions being needed on land to achieve this. It's just interesting comment, and I'd be interested in just the science around that at some stage.
Yeah, so that's a bit of work the science team is doing. So, yeah. Great.
Lloyd.
Yes, thank you. No, it's just on the AF8 business again. I'm just wondering if we've got more of a role if the risk has been upped a bit. Have we got a role in perhaps preparing people in terms of civil defence awareness and first aid courses and stuff, something that could perhaps start at year 7 level in schools or something, just to...
So that's already, I'll start and then Councillor Cook will follow. Yes, certainly that's part of the EMS, part of their core work program is preparation. And so they'll be taking on this new information on board, and I'm sure they'll be reinforcing their approach.
I can confirm that the Emergency Management South, and along with every other emergency management group in the South Island, make contributions to the employment of a field officer, and this time it's Alice Lake Hammond, who goes around providing community information, producing resilient communities is the intention, but with particular emphasis on schools, so that the information has spread. So she's a full-time employee of the South Island Group.
Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just further to what the comments Councillor Cook's making in terms of emergency preparation, preparedness, one of the issues that, some of the issues that came from the Christchurch event involved sewerage and the breakdown that happened so quickly, and also water supply to people. And I just wonder if this latest presentation by those people studying the Alpine Fault, which really ups the ante quite a lot, are we as an institution taking that into account with our planning that we're doing in terms of such things as stock bank management or the various things we do that keep the community safe? Because all of those things become somewhat less safe with the news that we're more likely to have a significant earthquake from the Alpine Fault than we were a few days ago, in theory.
The answer is yes. It will be taken into account as we shape up asset management plans and also be taken into account in terms of the TAs with their infrastructure around pipes. And it's very much part of the Three Waters reform, the need to have high quality infrastructure underground. Neville.
If I can have a go at that, Chairman.
Yes,
one of the central themes of the education program which emergency management is running is in creating resilient communities, and saying if this happens or when this happens, people need to prepare to be self-sufficient for probably 5 days, because their infrastructure will be seriously damaged right across the South Island and possibly into the North Island. So, yes, those what you're talking about is infrastructure things the council needs to be aware of, but people also need to take responsibility for their own safety and ability to carry on for probably up to 5 days without mobile phones and water supplies and electricity. Well, that's what's predicted. It's going to happen.
Any further comments on Rob's report? If not, would somebody like to move that it's noted? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by David, all in favour say aye. Right, we'll move to item 2, Judging Policy, Environment Southlands Community Awards. Gail, would you like to speak to this item?
This policy really just formalises a process that's already in place. It provides clarity, I guess, around that process, and it also makes it clear the kind of commitment that's involved for judging the Environment Award. It's part of some efficiencies and some changes that we've been making to ensure the credibility and the integrity of the award moving forward. The other aspect of this is around selecting our judges today, which will be
Got Lloyd then, Robert.
Did we last year get as far as getting nominations for this, or was the process cancelled for that kind of thing?
Yes, it was cancelled.
Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Gail, my question is around potential lockdowns due to pandemics and so on. Are you gearing up for the potential that the actual event might not go ahead and that you could then go Zoom it or do it online? Have you thought
I haven't geared that up, but certainly that can be part of our planning.
And with that in mind, could you see the possibility that at some stage the whole event could be held online rather than in a physical location? I'm just thinking of the savings that could be made by doing it there. I'm just wondering if you've explored the potential for a different kind of event.
We have talked about some aspects of that, and there's pros and cons like with everything, because a big part of the event is the opportunity for all the different organisations and people involved in one another, and also the council and the different sponsors that are there. So pros and cons of it. So we have, but in line.
And just picking up on that, a big part of the night is a celebration of all the good things going on, and that's, I think there's a general view that that's more likely to be a celebration if it's in person. But the other thing is also looking at, actually there is a real option to live stream it as well as in present, but to live stream it as well, so we can get to a wider audience. And so I think we're all looking at how do we make this, how do we maintain the good bits and how do we increase the coverage of it, so actually get as many people involved as we can.
A little bit more to that, in that we are actually considering recording it, perhaps not live streaming it, because there's quite a bit of downtime at times when people are having their meals and stuff, but looking at potentially doing that. But it would be quite long, and then you have to consider lots of things like with not just sit through something that long, or those kind of things. But it's definitely something that's on the
Thank you.
No, thanks for that, and that's, it is a constantly evolving program, and being able to, that wider audience being able to go to our website and pull up the highlights, I think is probably a good way going forward to connecting with a wider number of the community. But as Rob said, it always has been a celebration that night, and you see the positive vibes going around the room, people thinking, what more can we do? And so I think we're all looking forward to the slightly revamped version for this year. So if there's no other general comments, we have 2 recommendations. The first one is to adopt the judging policy for the Environment Southland Community Awards. Would somebody like to move?
I'll move the adoption of that
I'll see.
Moved by Neville, seconded by Lyndall. Further comment on it? All in favour say aye. Aye. 2. And number 2 is to appoint 2 councillors as judges, and I know there's been significant interest in this, that we'll open it up to the floor at this stage. So Peter, I think, was first off with his hand up. We're going to.
Yeah, I'd like to, in the sake for continuity in the awards and judging, for the judging panel, which I think is really important, I'd like to nominate Lyndall Ludlow to be part of that group.
By Peter, seconded all over the place. Who did we get? We'll take your record, do you? Right, David.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add a wee bit to that nomination. I've judged with Lyndall in the past, and I think she's exceptional in what she does as a judge, and I'd just like to add my support to that nomination.
Now, Lloyd, you were.
Yes, I was just going to say that I'm withdrawing my name partly in the interest of decorum and partly because I'm of the time availability. I'm likely to be nominating quite a few people, and I'm involved with a number of organisations. I'm the chairman of at least 3 and treasurer of another couple against my better judgment. And I've had quite a big involvement with Glencare groups, Enviro schools, lots of school projects, lots of public projects. So there's going to be a conflict of interest there. So I'm withdrawing my name. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Lloyd. And an important part of this is actually the nominations coming forward so that we get a good spread. So thanks for that, and we'll still obviously be involved. Neville.
I'd like to nominate Councillor David Stevens to be one of the judges assessors. I think that the team did in the past done an excellent job with working together, and it's actually a huge job. There's a lot of time involved, but provided he's available.
You happy to accept that nomination, David?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jeremy.
Chairman, can I suggest that we also look at a backup / trainee, so that we've got somebody else in case David or I are suddenly unavailable.
I think that's a good idea.
And that gives us somebody that's starting to
Groove in.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Eric. Groove in Eric's official words.
Your comment along the same lines? Or?
Well, yes and no, and that you haven't been voted on yet.
No, I'm not saying I have.
No, what I mean is maybe either of you two could be the trainee. No, what I'm trying to say is challenging the status quo, I suppose, as I do. But really, isn't there a need or a desirability for some refreshment, no matter how, obviously the job you two have done is very good, but that doesn't mean there aren't other people who could do it just as well. And so just to, I don't think it goes without saying that we should just rely on people who've already done it before. There probably are other people in the room who would really like that position. And the idea of having a refreshed team, I really support.
And I think in recent days, David actually said to me he would be happy to stand aside, but he's had councillors who approached him and said, actually, we want you to stand. So I know there's a lot of other people, or a number of other people would love to be involved in this. And I think, but at the end of the day, it'll come down to a vote. And I've been very impressed by the way that Lloyd and Peter have presented, saying basically, you know, we'll step aside, we'll go with the flow. And because it is important, and it's good to have that amount of enthusiasm in the room. But the nomination was well. If we continue down the track that Lyndall was suggesting, and I'm pretty sure we have done it in the past, is actually having an alternate there, because things can happen. Peter.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with that. But I would say that I think there was something in there to have a judging panel that lasts for 3 years for the sake of continuity, I would probably think that that could change, because we don't want to have two judges step out in 1 year and then have two fresh ones. So have a young pup that, you know what I mean, alongside the old dog. I shouldn't have said that, but maybe think about that for next year.
Just in regards to that, then would Peter be willing to come in as the third lead?
As a young pup?
A young pup.
Well,
Be
that
involved,
term,
or
we said that.
understand, and if there is a point that the two can't be there, I'm happy to read that if that is acceptable.
Moved by Jeremy and seconded for that. And you were happy for that arrangement. The other thing is we have a vote in the sort of a winner or a loser. I actually quite like that idea of actually doing the nominations and the alternates separately. Gail, would you like to comment?
I just thought I'd just make a comment about the policy that we have there. It does say that for continuity, maybe do it for the term, like for the 3-year term as councillors elected on, but it also gives you some freedom in there to negotiate. So you don't have to do it like that, it's just a recommendation within the policy, and the policy also provides for that third backup judge. So it's all in there anyway, so what we're suggesting.
It's quite a commitment for the judging once you see it and what's involved, so it's,
Right, unless anybody else wants to comment, we'll add number 3, so we'll do the appoint the council at the stage where we've had 2 councillors nominated for that position, which is Lyndall and David, and then we'll do that, then we'll do the motion for the alternate, and we've only had 1 nomination, unless there's no further for that. Okay, so I'll put the first motion that we appoint Lyndall and David as judges for the Environment Southland Community Awards for 2021-22. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Carried. And Jerry's motion, that we appoint Peter as an alternate. We do, that was seconded, wasn't it? Yes. All in favour will say aye. Aye. No, thank you. That's I think come to a very good arrangement. I know that people are very interested in this area, but it's good to see that good team approach. Right, we'll move to item 3, which is the transfer of the Building Act functions for large dams to Environment Canterbury.
Good morning. So the purpose of this item is to approve the agreement transferring the Building Act functions in relation to large dams to Environment Canterbury. So by way of background, Regional Council has responsibilities under the Building Act for large dams. So in part of that, a Regional Council has to be certified as a building consent authority, which comes at the annual certification comes at a significant cost. So since 2008, Otago Regional Council has acted in that function for Southland and the West Coast. And some time ago, they made indications that they might divest themselves of that function and possibly transfer it to ECAN. So they've confirmed that now. So we've been in discussions with ECAN. So we've basically got a draft agreement, which is before council for approval. It's had a thorough legal review through the process. So the costs essentially that we're looking at is so we're paying a third share of the 3 councils' legal costs, Environment Canterbury's costs, and then there's an annual fee of $13,000 plus GST to ECAN for them to maintain their building authority certification. So which is the same as the West Coast, and Otago's contribution is going to be $26,000 plus just. So the draft agreement's appended, so if you'd like to answer any questions, council may have.
Any questions on this? Probably declare a very tenuous interest in this. that my son was involved in Otago a number of years ago in this area. He's no longer in that area, but I'm reasonably familiar with the reasons we're going down this track and the cost of actually meeting that building percent is considerable, and this, we're talking about working more closely with our regional neighbours, and this looks to be a very good arrangement where we have ECAN picking up that for a number of councils. But I won't vote on this just to make sure I keep myself squeaky clear. So, Eric.
Yeah, I might have missed this, but the definition of a large dam, whereabouts is that? And
Yeah, so that's in the Building Act, so the current definition is,
I wonder if it didn't fight.
yeah, so it was probably in one of the early items to council. Yeah, so essentially definition is a volume of 20,000 cube and a height of 4 metres or more. So,
okay.
yeah, previous legislation it was either or, but now it's both. So.
Thank you for that. And my other point is, this might be a silly question, but we've obviously had our legal team look at this to make sure that it covers everything it needs to.
Okay.
Good. Well, we've four recommendations. Chairman, I know that we've had Otago doing this work for us for a number of years. It makes sense for Otago and Southland to work with Canterbury to make sure we get consistency across the South Island.
Moved by Neville.
I'll have a second, but I've just got a quick question. Can you just give an example of what some level and structures, so people know what?
So in Southland, structures like there's the Mararoa Weir, the Te Anau control gates, Monowai, there's our large dams like the Waihopai Detention Dam.
I'll have a second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comment?
Acknowledge the vast amount of work that this has actually taken to get to this point. Both Gavin and Remo and my team have been behind the scenes going backwards and forwards with multiple parties, multiple legal advice, lots of negotiation, and sometimes when these papers come to you, it doesn't always show how much work goes in behind the scenes. So I just wanted to make that point. It's been a really long process. I'm really pleased that it's got to this point.
It's a bit of an anomaly, I guess, for regional councils to have this, the building type thing. Normally these things are with the territorials, and that's probably one of the reasons that it is better set.
Chair, so Otago's approved the agreement and it's going up to West Coast for approval in May. So hopefully we're all in line for the transfer date of 1st of June.
I'll put the motion. All in favour will say aye, and I'll just note my abstention just to make sure I'm squeaky clean on this one. We'll move to item 4, which is the Local Government New Zealand's Annual General Conference and Regional Sector Pre-Conference Tour. Okay, so the conference is being held in Blenheim this year from the 15th to the 17th of July.
I think I'm happy to move item 1 straight away. I don't think there's any debate on that.
We noted.
I'll second that.
We go to 2.
Second by Lyndon, all vote say aye.
Aye.
Well, we did have a bit of a conversation earlier. There's a little bit of interest in this conference, and both Lloyd McCallum and Alan Beard, who aren't here today, have expressed an interest in attending this conference. I also almost have to attend this conference, but we didn't send interview last year. Normally we have had up to 4 in the past. I know there's a bit more interest in the room, so the topic is open for debate. But for nominations. Anyone?
I'm interested in attending too, Chairman. Particularly keen to see the king salmon that I've studied so much in my RMA commissions training.
Any other expressions of interest before we go down? Interested. Okay.
You'll be ex officio, so that would give us Ellen, Lloyd, Lyndall and Jeremy.
I think I probably have to be nominated too, do we, Jan? Just,
Our budgets tend to provide for 2 councillors plus the chief executive to go, so, and it's any 2, so if there's more than that, that's fine, it's just, you do need to be formally appointed, it doesn't, the
Voting
chairman's not
delegate.
automatically on,
Right,
just because
okay.
he's the chairman.
So, Mr Chair, there's an option around only 2 going, or if you want to, if it's more than 2, it's your call. It will exceed budget, but it's your decision.
And other options in the past have been that 2 councillors have gone to the conference and different councillors have attended the pre-conference tour, just to get the spread.
Pre-conference tour.
Would it be a benefit, you know, obviously with the conference, there'll be breakout sessions that different councillors can go to. And don't all just hang around together. Use your time wisely.
There are definitely different workshops and councillors generally attend them to ensure good coverage.
And then we're able to report back to council on
Yes.
the different things that happened. That's what's happened last time.
Are you looking for nominations now or just expressions?
I think so, just,
We really need
It's-
nominations now to take advantage of the early bird registrations. We can't register people, just hold spaces, we have to have names in them.
Well, can I kick things off, Chairman, by nominating the chair, the deputy chair and councillor Beard attend? And we can argue around who the other person is.
we go, but nomination there. Second.
I'll second those.
Now, just having heard what Jan said, I've always found the most valuable part is that pre-conference tour, and the actual conference thing is reasonably expensive. The others will put their hand up, would they be interested in just going to the pre-tour or not?
I was just going to give an option that I might be up that direction. Can I go to the tour, like be involved in the tour? Obviously, I'll make my own way there and things like that. Does that help the discussion? I'm just saying that I'm there. I just want to be involved. I'm always interested to have a look around the regions and things like that. And then, yeah, just put it on a different option if it's budgets and things like that.
Bonnie?
I'd like to nominate councillor Ludlow to attend, just to make it official.
I'll nominate Jeremy as well. I think we can work through these things because it's actually good to get out there and meet some of your counterparts, and that's one of the values of those bus trips around is we all deal with the same issues. I've always found it, quite valuable. The main conference will have a couple of inspiring speakers, but it's very territorial based. But that pre-tour is normally excellent, and it's more the conversations that you have in between times than perhaps what you see a lot of the time. So we get okay, so we have 2 motions adding up to 5 people, which I know it's a little, but we didn't send anybody last year because of COVID, so I'm reasonably comfortable with that's all. We need to put those 2 motions, do we?
We have a second for councillor Ludlow's nomination, Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah. They're both seconded. So can we do that? I suppose we've done ones, we just do the other. We've done the first 3, so I'll put the motion for Lyndall and Jeremy. All in favour will say aye. Against? No? Carried. Might have to cut lunches.
I might be able to convince somebody else I know that's going.
Oh, right, it won't need to be anything.
Just for clarification, how many of those 5 want to go to the whole show and how many are going to just do the pre-conference tour?
I think we leave it open at this stage, but we'll leave the voting
I'm
ones.
just looking at
We will need to reach,
Payment of expenses.
we will need
the
to reach.
resolutions that follow
We will
and
need
how
to-
we're going to handle that if we haven't determined what
And we will need names to register this, Jen.
We don't, we
It's
want
easier
to
to
let the
take it out
government
than
from
it is.
spending money they weren't allowed to spend.
It's a general happiness.
So the appointed councillors approve payment of conference, so we'll do that. And I'm assuming there'll be a cancellation time if we do the lot at the
Yes, there
moment.
is, yes.
So it's probably the tidiest way of doing it. So we better move number 3, which is approving the payment and associated expenses and attendance, travel accommodation, etc. We could probably do that as one. Moved by David, seconded by Jeremy. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to item 5, which is the councillors' meeting schedule, April to June 2021.
I have a number of additions to add to this list. There was a Palmu Glen Court workshop in Gore on the 20th of April. Councillor McPhail attended. Meeting with Eugenie Sage, attended by the chairman on the 19th of April. There are regional transport committee hearings in Queenstown on the 23rd of April that involved Councillor Beard and Councillor Allen. South Island Regional Council's Governance Group meeting via Zoom on the 29th of April. Intensive Winter Grazing Zoom meeting on the 27th of April. The Balance Agri-Nutrients Board dinner has moved from the 27th to the 28th of April. The Bluff Maritime Museum Board meeting on the 3rd of May at 9 o'clock at Bluff, involving councillors Cook and Isler. And the extraordinary meeting of council to adopt the LTP consultation document on the 3rd of May at 10 o'clock.
Further additions or alterations?
Just a question, Chairman. I've registered with the Balance Agri-Nutrients Board dinner. I'm just wondering if anybody else has done the same.
did too.
Yeah, I don't
Know anybody else?
No, well, it came to us as individuals,
Yeah.
and so I just responded directly back.
Same.
And we're now learning the date has changed, have we?
Well,
They did send
initially
another
sent it out
email.
on one day, and then they said it's the next day, so it was a Tuesday, but now it's a Wednesday.
Oh, I need to change that,
So who else has got one?
otherwise I'm gonna be hungry
know.
that night.
Now, it's also, yeah, well, when I go to Christchurch on the Friday, I had an invitation from the chamber for something the night before. If we're going an early flight, maybe I would go to that, and so I'm not sure what that meeting, if we're on the red eye, I probably should be in the night before. We can approve it next time.
I promise it's a breakfast meeting with the Air New Zealand board. The tickets are $40 a head, that one. That's the one
There's an evening one and a breakfast one, I think there's, yeah. I'll talk to you afterwards, we can bring it up next time.
I'll add it to the list.
Any, no requests for leave or any other at this stage? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by David, all in favour say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to item 6, which is the common seal.
No, item 6 is the reporting of the
Oh, no.
expenditure of our delegated authority.
Should have gone from that.
We'll have a few of these which are already going through on a fairly regular basis. The Chief Executive and General Manager have delegation jointly to approve accounts up to $300,000. This invoice was for $374,381.50 and relates to expenditure on the National Wilding and Conifer Program by the Midbone Charitable Trust.
Moved by
Seconded.
Seconded by Eric. Any discussion? I'll put the motion, all those in favour say aye. Right, now we'll move to what should be next. The common seal, or was this? Everything's straightforward.
I'll move the recommendation, Chairman.
Moved by Neville, seconded by Lyndall. All in favour say aye. No, that's where we're wrong, sorry. We're around the wrong way on that. Okay, that will finish the items in open session. And we will move to public excluded.
Public excluded.
And I'll ask for the reasons for moving into public excluded.
Reasons for moving into public excluded is to protect the privacy of natural persons, including that of deceased natural persons. To prevent the disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage. And to allow council to carry on negotiations, including commercial and industrial, without prejudice or disadvantage.
Would somebody like to move that we move into public?
Well, Chairman, the excluded for those reasons.
Moved by Neville, seconded by
Second.
Eric. All in favour say
We've
aye.
already moved, but that's all right. Right.
We've got the declaration first.